comparison to the American one. So these are all things that need to be considered. But if I had to start a company again, although the political stability is not the same as it used to be 4 years ago, Firat, I would probably still do it in the UK. I wouldn't do it in Italy. I wouldn't do it in Bosnia. If you want to start a tech company in Europe, I think it's still the top place.
Well, you're studying UK very well, so it's about, well, actually being a glue between the MENA region or like Eastern Europe, where you actually can get talents, and the US, right? An interesting point about the early days of company, because, and we've seen it in the portfolio, when founder, for example, has lots of traction from the US, and they normally raise money from the US investors, but they're based here, which is very much interesting scheme, right? Because before, people used to think, oh, why are you raising money from the US, let's say, if, well, was it difficult for you to raise money in the UK, which is sometimes not correct representation.
Correct. Like, for instance, when we raised capital, Yana, we had 2 funds from the UK giving us a term sheet, but the market was very hot at the time, 2021. And then an American investor came, they immediately gave us better terms, better price. They did the whole due diligence in like 3 weeks. So it was a very easy choice for us, also because at the early stage, it validates your play a lot, raising capital from American investor. And on the talent point, I think in the UK and US, you have amazing talents, but the competition for these talents is crazy, especially in the US. Like, you know, I would never start a company in the UK with the developers team here, but use the best of both worlds.
Okay. If I put myself in the founder's shoes, right, and let's say we're speaking here in the UK, we're based in the UK now. Let's imagine you're like UK founders. Where would you scale? Given like all you know, which region would you pick first? A question for everyone.
To scale your team or your business?
Business.
Business-wise, I think the market in this area, if you add MENA, UK and Europe, it doesn't make a US. That's the issue. When you look at the market size, population-wise, it's a lot of people, but the purchasing power has been so stagnant, especially UK and Europe. We don't really see a huge demand, and there's like not a great drive that's actually increasing the usage levels. And if you want to reach like a certain million users, you can reach them in Europe, but like the purchasing power of these people are not as much as in the UK. So it's a very interesting dilemma right now that we are going through, both in consumer companies and B2B companies, is that, you know, which region should we target for future growth? I think Asia is actually, well, in the US, there's too much competition. Of course, the US is always the best place to start and scale a business. But then you have 500 Lucas, 100 Nadirs, 1,000 Firats in the US. Whereas in these regions, you know, when you start, the competition is a little bit less, both for talent and for fundraising as well. So Asia could be an interesting opening, scaling region for us. But that's also a very different culture and, you know, dynamics. So I've spent some time in Indonesia, Singapore. I've been to Vietnam recently with Endeavor, actually. And it's, I see the market, I see the potential, but it's so difficult to actually tap into that market. So again, I didn't answer your question.
Yes, you didn't.
Nadir? I would think, I mean, our lens is always two, really. Number one is, where are the customers? Right? I mean, if you follow the customer and you understand that the product you have suits a need for a customer and you solve a problem for a customer, and that's the geography we go to, right? So that's been the path we followed, and it's worked for us. And then the second, and perhaps because we're in a regulated business, we very, very closely monitoring regulatory shift, because the landscape is changing everywhere, and these create phenomenal opportunities. So when a regulation opens, for example, a new wallet regulation in a certain market in Africa, we want to be there quick, because the opportunity, the payoff for being first is astronomical. And these are the two lenses we use.
Yeah, and the problem with Europe is that, and I've seen it so many times, is like you can build a large outcome in the separate country like Italy, Spain, France, but it's usually difficult. Like, you know, the market is very fragmented and it requires a lot of localization to go from France to Italy. They're completely different markets, right? So sometimes you get to like Series B, Series C with a super good outcome in Italy, but it's not good enough for, you know, large private equity or American investor to build a multi-unicorns. And then you have to scale across different countries, and often US is the holy grail because it's a one a unified big market. So most of our clients come from there, and they will still come from there. But surprisingly, we have 20% of the revenues that come from Southeast Asia and South America, and these are the countries growing the fastest, at least in the e-commerce space for us.
Yeah, that's, I totally agree on Europe, especially sometimes like regulations like in place, and speaking about France, right? And then France is all about the AI now, but again, the M&A is happening and will happen, but because of regulatory frameworks, sometimes we just stick within France, and same with other regions, so other countries in Europe. Like speaking about the clients, Nadir, you mentioned, right? You will follow the clients. Let's imagine you have 20% of your client base, I know, Southeast Asia, 20% in Africa, 20% here. What's your next move?
I think, yeah, I mean, I think it's, I mean, I just speak for in terms of our business, because we're almost an ecosystem of product. And we can either choose to go broad or we can choose to go deep, right? So if we have no geographical expansion opportunity, we focus a lot of energy on building our network effects, building our ecosystem, which is something we're doing right now. In Africa, we're adding credit as a new product. And all that does is it just deepens the flywheel. So I don't know if that answers your question, but if the market is not there, we just stay where we are and go deeper.
Interesting. Yeah. Luca is giving me answers. So Luca.
Yeah, just say
clients, you have a lot of clients, right, in the US and again in Asia, like which is very fast growing. What's your next one?
Yeah, like if you take just a normal like market sizing exercise, I think D2C for us is like 3 trillion as a whole, and 50% of that comes from the US. So we already have a presence there. Like you say, it's much easier for us to go deeper in that country rather than expanding to like 25 countries and then having to have operations there. Also in terms of branding, relationship that you have with clients, business case that you can showcase and say, hey, we serve already clients in your country which have a similar use case as yours. So it's just easier to double down on an existing client, on an existing market rather than spread across too many.
Right.
Okay, I have an answer.
Yes, let's go.
So I would keep my engineering, design, and all sorts of talent in Istanbul, which I'm doing it right now, and set up a sales, marketing, and a more global face of the business in the UK. So that's what I would do. That's actually what I'm doing.
Not US, UK.
UK, because then like the time zones and the flights are really. We tried to do it in New York. But the time zone and, of course, the culture and everything, it was too difficult, too expensive. So London is a good base if you want to do like an Eastern European engineering hub. It should not be further than 4 hours of flight. That's what I always think, you know.
That's a very unexpected outcome today for the panel. So I think we need to stay in the UK and build the global business from here. So thank you so much for the panel. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was a pleasure. And let's go and build something. Yes. All right.